Hello, hi, welcome, and we are getting ready for the season of love, but let's do it with the edgy kick to it, and let's get started right now. Okay, we're going to base paint our coffee mug from Steel Magnolia in color Hot Pink from CCDIY, and we're going to use the glitter colors from Mr. Nolas and Peachy Olive Glitters. And I'm just going to mix the paint into my adhesive from Adhesive Apothecary and apply that all over my mug. And then I'll go ahead before it's dry right away and apply my glitters. And I decided to put it in an ombre effect because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do yet to this cup. But you don't necessarily need to do it in ombre if you're going to do what I'm going to be doing here, because the ombre is pretty much covered at the end, you'll see. But you can leave it as a peekaboo style and put more peekaboos on the cup. I didn't add as many and see more of your ombre. But also I forgot to glitter my butt. So glitter your butt first. Don't do what I did. Glitter your butt first and then go ahead and do the rest. Or you can do what I did and forget your butt and then go back and do it, because you can do a second coat as well. It does not matter. But here I am tilting my cup at a pretty steep angle to let that glitter flow together nicely for your ombre. And I go back and forth a couple times with my glitters, so that way they fall together nicely and don't have a steep line in the middle, so you can't really see them meeting. They're going to be blended very nicely. You can't tell, but I do angle it. And here's where I forgot my butt, so I'm just going back in and applying the glitter to my bottom. And I did need a second coat on just my handle because my glue started to dry a bit on me, so I had some patchy parts. So I did go ahead and apply after it was all dried, so let it dry first if you do need a second coat, and go ahead and apply a second coat of your adhesive and just re-glitter that part. If you did need to re-glitter the whole thing, let it all dry and just put your adhesive over it and re-glitter the whole thing again. And then let it dry completely again and give it another coat with your sealer. In my case, it was the Adhesive Apothecary, and then we'll go ahead and apply our first coat of epoxy. I'm just showing you in this part how I epoxy around the handle. I put it all around the cup first, and then I just work my handle a nice thin layer, and I just smooth it around the handle nicely, and then I go around where the handle meets the cup and make sure it's not like kind of gunked up around there, and I just smooth it out to make sure it's not glopping up around the handle where it meets the cup, and let it spin and pop it with your torch, or pop any bubbles with your torch, and then we'll be ready for the next step. Give it a nice light sand before we go on to placing our peekaboos. So I just kind of set them on there first before peeling them to see where I wanted them. And then we're going to put them on, and then I'll peel off the pieces where I want the paint to show through after I have them on the cup. It's a little bit easier to weed them when they're on the cup first, and I'm just using some not transfer tape, stencil vinyl. I cut my shapes out in stencil vinyl, and then I'll go ahead and peel out the edges of where I'm going to be letting the paint show, because then I'll go on after, and that's where we'll be putting our outlines on in a different color. So whatever you want to show, whatever you want to show through, that's what the blue part is. So keep that blue part on, whatever you want to show through underneath for our peekaboo. So now this is going to be the color of my base color. I'm going to be doing a crackle. So this is the color of the cracks of my next step. So I'm going to be putting this color on, and then I'll be putting the crackle on, and then I'll be putting a white color on. So this is the color that the cracks are going to be, is that Bordeaux, like maroon color. And now this is the crackle. I have a Dixie Belle. It's by Dixie Belle. This is one I had on hand. You can also use one by Folk Art. I heard that one's pretty good too. I haven't tried it yet. And this stuff is really thick, so you just stir it really well and then just get it on really even, nice, thin, even coats. And it is thick, almost like honey. So just make sure you get it all on, covered evenly, and let it completely dry before you move on to the next step. You want it all to be dried. And you can use your heat gun a little bit to speed up the process. I did use a heat gun in mine to help it dry, but just make sure it's all completely dry before you move on. And it does almost have like a little bit of a glossy look. So now for the next step, this one where you use your next paint color, you don't want to keep going over it. So just brush it on and kind of just leave it. Don't keep brushing over the same spot. You just kind of brush it on and try not to touch it again. I did brush over it like a couple times and that was okay. It didn't really affect it, but don't keep brushing over it because I guess it doesn't work as well. So brush it on, don't touch it, and move on to the next step. And this will, when it all dries, you'll get that crackle effect. It already kind of starts happening as you put it on, but once it fully dries, you'll really get that crackle effect. I did start with a slightly damp paintbrush. Mine wasn't completely dry, so that does help. And just get it all on everywhere, and then you'll see it start to crackle once it's all completely dry, and then we'll move on to our next step. Okay, so I wanted more with this cup. I didn't want to just keep it white for the overlayer. So I was like, why not just give it a paint wash like you do on furniture? So I took some paint, put it in a cup, and just added some water, because that's how you get a paint wash, mixed it up, and keep some paper towels on the side because you're going to want those. I kept my extra cup of water, and here's what it looks like when it's all dry. See that cracks and stuff? And then I just took my paintbrush in the paint wash mixture, apply it to the cup, and you use your paper towels. You can use some damp paper towels, and you'll see me, I go and wipe some off, and you can dip it in the water cup, take more off, leave some on, and just leave as much on, leave as little on as you want. That's what a paint wash is. You're just like a watercolor. You're just adding some light washed color over your painted base there, and it just gives it a nice washed look. So just keep going back and forth with your paint wash and your paper towels, and put as much on or as little on as you want. Try not to rub too hard because that is still unsealed paint underneath. And you'll see me, I dip it in some water there to take some more off. You can just dab it on and give it like a dabbed effect. You can brush some on, and then just keep putting as much on or as little on, and keep wiping the paint wash on until you're satisfied with it. Or you can just keep it the color that you chose for your overlay color too. You don't even need to do the paint wash. I just decided to do the paint wash look on it to give it a little bit more color and dimension. So just keep putting on your paint wash until you're happy with the look, and then we'll go on to the next part. And here's what it looks like after the paint wash is completed. And I did want some of those darker maroon spots a little bit more darker, so I just took some Q-tips and dipped them in water and just kind of ran them over lightly to darken them up to get some of that whitewashed look off of them. So just keep switching out your Q-tips when they get dirty because the white goes on them. And I just rubbed some of those off, not all of them, just to make them pop out a little bit more from that paint wash. And then let it all completely dry, because then we're going to pull off the peekaboos, and you'll see at the next step I didn't let it dry enough, I don't think, because some of my paint did peel, but that's okay because it didn't affect what I was doing, because this is a distressed, a crackle look, and it didn't matter for when I went and did my outline pieces, because once I applied the outlines, it didn't affect the other cut because it is still crackled everywhere. You could see here where some of the paint peeled, but it's fine because it peeled just to the underneath color, the darker color, and then I could still apply my outlines and it still showed the shapes just fine. So do let it dry completely, and then be really careful when you're peeling up your peekaboos, and then we'll go on to the next part. After you do pull up your peekaboos, go ahead and seal it with epoxy, let it dry, and give it a light sand once again, and then we'll go ahead and apply our outlines. Cut those out in whatever color vinyl you want. I chose silver, and then I cut out some other shapes and some black vinyl and added those as well. Some of these pieces, they're really thin and skinny. I just decided to apply without the transfer tape because it was giving me a hard time. So I just went and applied some of the outlines by hand with my tweezers, and that ended up being a little bit easier for me. So some of it can be a little tricky and takes a lot of patience. Sometimes you need to just step away and go back and finish it for the outline since they're so thin. Sometimes it makes you want to just chuck the cup across the room, but just walk away if you need to and then come on back to finish these outlines. Not gonna lie, this is my least favorite part about peekaboo style cups, is putting the outlines on the cup. I do dread this part, but once it's all done and completed, it does look nice and it is fun to see the outcome. But these outlines, they did give me a hard time, but I got them on and it was pretty at the end. Once you get your fabulous outlines on, we will be going in with our quick coat from CC DIY. I do apply it to my whole entire cup to keep those edges and vinyls sealed for our epoxy coat. And depending on if you need one epoxy coat or two, if you need two, go ahead and give it a light sand before you apply your final coat. I did just need one on this because I'm using Mr. Nolas and it is a thicker viscosity, so one did the job just fine. And then she will be all finished. And I did lose the lid to this one. I'm pretty sure I threw it away. I have no idea where it is, but that's okay. She's mine. I'm keeping her because I have no idea where the lid is. So this was the finished product and I'm pretty satisfied with it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments and let me know what you want to see for next time. I am completely open to options. So I hope you enjoyed this one and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.